This year, Channel 2 News Investigates broke the story of workouts so strenuous they caused several players on the University of Houston's women's soccer team to experience an extreme condition that can cause kidney failure.
Tonight, the U of H Board of Regents has finished its investigation, and we've got those results. Channel 2 investigator Mario Diaz is live in our newsroom with the findings. Mario.
Keith, Lauren, the results were revealed this morning on campus, the board pointing nearly all the blame in the direction of a former trainer who was terminated earlier this year, stating that other key figures acted appropriately. However, as we uncovered, there are still questions left unanswered.
The head women's soccer coach acted appropriately, although he should have stopped the February 2018 workout before it became excessive. In your words, he should have stopped this workout.
Yes.
This from Peter Taff, a now former University of Houston Regent, tasked with investigating a women's soccer workout in February 2018 that left one player in the hospital for 5 days with the potentially deadly medical condition known as RHABDO.
That was the purpose of our review, is to figure out what happened and make recommendations so it doesn't happen again.
The report presented during this morning's UH Regents meeting states women's soccer coach Diego Bocanegra, athletic department management, and university leadership acted appropriately.
Your findings specifically were the coach should have stopped this workout before it became excessive. Why did the university not make that conclusion months ago?
You have to ask them.
Just one of our key questions not answered in the Board of Regents internal investigation.
How did punishment workouts get allowed into the program by the head soccer coach?
Well, I don't believe the head soccer coach did that. I think, like I said,
it was in his manual.
Yeah, it was in, I mean, yeah, that's a good question. I don't know why it's in the manual.
Why did the coach even allow it to happen?
That's a good question.
Didn't you ask that?
Yeah, of course.
So what's the answer to the question?
Yeah, the response from him, as I understand it, I didn't personally talk to him, but like I said, I was directing this, was that he didn't really follow the extent of that it would be 250 to 300 up downs, that it would be some type of, you know, running laps or running sprints and that kind of thing. And then once he saw,
but he was there and he watched these girls go up and down to the point that one ended up in the hospital.
Right.
How could he have not known?
Well, that's it. You're gonna have to ask him that question.
But you guys did the investigation, sir.
Another key takeaway, athletic director Chris Pesman had no clue that one of his female athletes was hospitalized until nearly a year later.
How does that happen?
That's a good question.
Did you ask that question as the chief investigator and in terms of the chief auditor for this?
Yeah, and there was not a response. It just didn't happen.
Now, Channel 2 Investigates did reach out for a reaction from one individual who was involved in the fallout of the 2018 workout that sent a player to the hospital with RHABDO. They did not want to weigh in on the findings at this time. Live in the newsroom, Mario Diaz, KPRC, Channel 2 News.